a dominating performance by South Carolina in all three phases. I had to go back, though, guys, and look at this game. I almost forgot that it was 13-0 at halftime. Like this was a game that, you know, it never felt like the game was in doubt. South Carolina was in control of this thing from the very beginning. It was very easy to see early on the talent discrepancy, if you will, which, it's crazy to think that Vanderbilt was this team over the summer that after they beat Florida and Kentucky last year, there was a lot of hype and excitement. SEC Media Days was in Nashville, home of the Vanderbilt Commodores, and you thought, okay, maybe Vandy can overachieve, get to a bowl game. I mean, over 3.5 wins seemed like the lock of all locks this summer in regards to Vanderbilt's win total. And they are a dysfunctional mess. I mean, they are. You watch them, guys. And I actually got a text from one of our good friends. I won't say his name on air, but a guy that covers Vanderbilt football texted me and said, Chris, I cover the worst program in all of Power 5. And it goes so far beyond just what you're seeing on the field. So Vanderbilt's in a bit of disarray when it comes to the football program. I like Clark Lee a lot. I think he's doing a good job at Vandy. He's a Vandy guy. But again, it was very, very easy to see early in that football game that the talent discrepancy, the talent gap was wide, right? Even with South Carolina's deficiencies and problems they've had, the talent gap was massive. A cold, wet day in Columbia, South Carolina. Again, guys, Gamecocks just dominate in all three phases, offensively, defensively, and special teams. You look at this football game, guys. I mentioned special teams. We'll start there, by the way. Beamer ball comes up big for South Carolina. Finally, the Gamecocks get that momentum-changing special teams play. There's been some notable plays this season. It's not like it's been a sum-zero game for Beamer ball, but it hasn't had the effect and hasn't had the impact that it had last year where you looked at it and said, okay, South Carolina, without a doubt, won that facet of the game. And to get that blocked punt, to get that scoop and score, yes, it was big in South Carolina's win over Vandy, but guys, why I think that's so important is all of a sudden now you've got Kentucky and Clemson, two games that you're already an underdog in one against the Cats, most likely going to be an underdog against Clemson. So you need to pull in the odds of Vegas 2 upsets. How are you going to do that? Well, special teams is a great way to steal a facet of the game, to serve as an equalizer in the ball game, right? And to steal a win. And I think South Carolina is going to need that. So to get the block punt in the Vandy game, to get that confidence maybe back on special teams, I thought that was big, and you're going to need more of that in the final 2 games this season. But, I mean, special teams, you dominated. Offensively, guys, Xavier Legette, congratulations to Xavier Legette. Who would have thought, man? This guy hits 1,000 yards receiving. And I remember over the summer, guys, I remember I said that, and we thought Juice Wells was going to be healthy, right? But I remember thinking to myself, if Xavier Legette has 500 yards or more receiving, he had a wildly successful season. I mean, to call Xavier Legette's season a success is such an understatement that it's not even funny, right? I mean, he's been electric. He's been incredible for South Carolina all year long. So to see him get that 1,000 yards, and especially guys like he's not 100% right now. You can tell Xavier Legette's playing through some things, right? He's banged up, if you will. I mean, he's South Carolina's having to go to him every single game over and over and over, and he just continues to show up. The hot home play offensively, guys, staying on that side of the football, continues for Spencer Rattler. He was fantastic in the football game. Had the one bad throw, but again, guys, it was a wet football, cold, rainy day, but 28 of 36, 351, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception to his credit. But again, guys, he was really good going down the field, making the right decisions. It's just more of the same for Spencer Rattler at Williams-Brice Stadium. Mario Anderson went full beast mode. God, that run that he had where he spun off the Vandy guys and took it the distance, I think 72 yards it was, something like that, a Super Mario type of play in that game. And, guys, again, I feel like we repeat this week after week after week. But it truly is hard to fathom that this coaching staff went as long as they did without realizing that Mario Anderson was truly this team's best option at running back. And he's going to have to carry even more of the load, guys, as now Juju McDowell is out for the season with a broken collarbone. That emerged Saturday from the running game. So unfortunately, Juju McDowell will be out the rest of the year. Mario Anderson and Dontavius Braswell, the true freshman, they'll both shoulder the load for the rest of the season. But again, guys, a really solid day for the Gamecocks offensively. I mean, you go down the board, guys, and just look at the statistics. I mentioned Rattler. I mentioned Mario, 9 carries, 102, a touchdown. Obviously, guys, Lenoris Sellers, one of the big talking points. He had the 1 carry for 36 yards and a touchdown, the touchdown run where he showed that physicality. Field did not throw the football in this game, but, how can you watch that kid? We talked about this in the post game. How can you watch that kid and not be excited about the future of that position at South Carolina? You look at the receiving guys. Joshua Simon continues to be a big-time piece for this offense. 6 catches for 65 yards. I thought Amarian Brown looked really good. 3 for 44 and a touchdown. Even Omega Blake got involved. 3 for 36, and he had a touchdown as well. So, guys, all in all, and then offensively, let me not leave out, of course, the Gamecocks defense, who had a fantastic day. And I wrote in my notes, it was an unordinary performance for the South Carolina defense. When you look at this season, because everybody, and I mean everybody, has been going up and down the field on South Carolina to some capacity, but not Vanderbilt, not Vandy. 234 total yards for them, just 104 yards passing, which is something we haven't seen all year. South Carolina play really, really good pass defense. 130 yards rushing. But guys, like I said, early in that game, you could just tell that Vandy, on a cold, wet day, right, they had a lot of success with these big explosive plays downfield. I think they were one of the best in the country entering that game at plays 20-plus yards, right, what have you, these explosive plays. But on a cold, wet day like that, you needed methodical drives, right? Like it's cold, it's wet, like guys are stiff. You're probably not popping off those big-time plays. You needed to win with nickel and diming down the field and fundamentals, and you were going to have to sustain drives. And that's one of the biggest reasons that game never felt in doubt, because you looked at Vandy and you were like, they don't have the guys. They just do not have the offense. Give South Carolina's defense, though, credit for eliminating Jaden McGowan, eliminating Will Shepherd. Thought they did a really good job of that, taking away those weapons, if you will. And, Vanderbilt just had no answer. So the Gamecocks defense, give them credit. Forced a couple turnovers as well. Obviously, you had the block punt. You had the interception as well. That was a big one. So all in all, a really successful day, guys, for South Carolina across the board. Now, I said this, that felt a lot like the Furman game without the early game struggle, in the sense that, like, Furman was a feel-good kind of get-right game where, you're able to sort of empty the bench late in the game and a bunch of different guys play, and that always makes you feel real good, and you played well, and you dominated in all 3 phases, and, goes back to the Lenoris Sellers thing. Like, you're excited about the team right now. You're excited about the team about the future. With that being said, though, what does this really mean heading into Kentucky and Clemson, right? South Carolina, for the first time all season long, has won back-to-back games. And, guys, you notice, I didn't spend a ton of time diving into the stats or individual performances in the Vandy game, because here's the thing about the Vanderbilt game. And right, we made a big to-do about the Jacksonville State game. So I want to start by saying, and give credit where credit's due, great job going out there and handling your business. Vandy was never on the same level as you. Vandy was never. This is a team you'd beaten 14 in a row. You've now beaten 15 in a row. If there's one thing that South Carolina football can do, it's beat Vanderbilt with ease, right? That's not an issue. That's not a problem. So you went out there and handled your business. You dominated in all 3 phases, something we did not see in the Jacksonville State game, which felt like a very underwhelming win, right? You beat Vanderbilt the way you needed to do so. With that being said, you and I and all of us would agree This 2023 season was never about beating Vanderbilt. And I'm not downplaying the win, guys. I'm just stating the very obvious. The 2023 season was never about beating Vandy. It was never about beating Jacksonville State. It was about beating the Kentuckys, the Clemsons, the Tennessees, the Georgias, the Floridas. Unfortunately, those games have already happened. Either way, though, you get where I'm going with this. So you look at that Vandy game. I think the best thing that comes from that performance against Vanderbilt, because I don't think you can look at a bunch of different things that happen in that and look at the defense, say, well, the defense has turned a corner because they stifled the mighty Commodores, or South Carolina's football team as a whole is they've found themselves and turned a corner because they beat Vanderbilt by 41. I don't think you can look at it that way, guys. Like, Vandy is Vandy. They're not very good. South Carolina will have a much stiffer test the next 2 weeks. But the best thing, by far, in my opinion, the best thing that came from that win over Vandy, positive momentum. Because as we know, momentum is a fickle mistress, right? When you get Uncle Mo on your side, you hold on for dear life and you run with it. And so now you've got Kentucky at home at night. You got Clemson upcoming in just under 2 weeks. But the most important thing is this. You've got a football team that has now tasted some success, right? Success breeds confidence. Confidence breeds more success. You got to have one or the other first, right? You got to have confidence in order to be successful, but you need to have some success in order to gain confidence. And for a football team that had lost 4 in a row, sitting at 2-6, was staring a loss to Jacksonville State right in the face, to find a way to win that football game, to beat Vandy like a drum, the best thing that comes from it is now you've had some success, which has led to confidence, and now you take that confidence in the game this weekend against the Kentucky Wildcats. So I would say this, kind of like I said after the Furman game, guys, I don't think it's wise to draw conclusions from this game. I don't think you look at this game and try to make conclusions that this team has turned it around and why weren't we doing this all year? Like, this is who we actually are. Like, South Carolina football still is who it is, right? Games against Jack State and Vandy, I don't know if they changed that, but we should, or you think you'd start seeing the best version of this football team, or at minimum, the most confident version of this football team. Winning cures all ills. That applies for coaches, that applies for fans, and certainly that applies for players. And in a 41-point win in which you outscored the Commodores 34-6 in the second half, confidence should be at an all-time high as you take on Kentucky and Clemson with bowl hopes hanging in the balance.